spent a little bit of time talking about the Colts situation yesterday. They have decided to go with Daniel Jones as the starter instead of Anthony Richardson. Here is the Colts head coach, Shane Steichen, with the question about Daniel Jones.
Why do you think you all can win with Daniel when his career record isn't good? And the last time we saw him play football for the Giants, it wasn't good.
Well, I think that he's proven that he's played good football in that 2022 season. He had a hell of a year that year. I think that was the highest completion rate in Giants franchise history that season. So he's proven to do it. I know he's had his ups and downs, but everyone's journey is different and feel confident in his abilities.
You better. Your job's probably, hanging in the balance there. But this is what we do. Anthony Richardson didn't say, hey, I'm the fourth best player in the draft. Chris Ballard's the GM. Why is it the player is always the bust, not the GM or the coach? Anthony Richardson came in as a raw talent, and he was a project. But I think every quarterback who comes into the NFL is a project of sorts. It's just varying degrees. Anthony Richardson was 20 years of age. He's younger than quite a few quarterbacks. He's younger than Shedeur Sanders is. He's younger than, all these other rookies. Jackson Dart of the Giants. It's going to take time. I just don't think organizations, coaching staffs have that ability they don't have time on their side. Because everybody seems to look and go, why can't we find our Jaden Daniels? Why can't we find our Bo Nix? Why can't we find our Drake May? Therefore, we're not very patient. In the Colts, you got a coaching staff that their jobs probably hang in the balance, and they're probably going to be taking the safe way with Daniel Jones. Is Daniel Jones a better quarterback than Anthony Richardson? The answer is yes. Does Anthony Richardson have a higher ceiling? Yes, I believe he does. But if you look at how he's played in the first 2 years, these are all the things that the scouts pointed out that he doesn't do well. Footwork is terrible, very, very inconsistent with his throws. He has one speed. He throws it really hard. He's going to take chances. He gets injured, and he took himself out of a game. So those are the negatives there. Now, the positives, you run a 4.4 or 4.3 at the combine, and you can throw it probably 80 yards. I mean, these are all great attributes. You still have to understand how to play the game. When you go to the line of scrimmage, how quickly do you get out of the huddle? Now, this is, from my source, because I said, will you go back and look at your notes on Anthony Richardson? And that's what he talked about. He thought that it was a high-risk draft pick, not a first-round or second-round grade. I look at Jalen Milroe, who's with Seattle, and I think he's got a brighter future than Anthony Richardson because Jalen Milroe was a third-round draft pick, and he was a guy who can run and throw and was a better thrower of the football when he was at Alabama. In fact, I think underrated there. A great talent, similar size, speed, but, here he's a guy who's a third-round draft pick. He will get a chance to sit, and he might be playing sooner than later. Sam Darnold's the starter, but that's basically a one-year deal. They think highly of Jalen Milroe, and he might get that opportunity, but he wasn't the fourth pick overall. Anthony Richardson and his agent probably are going, do we try to get out of this situation? But then what is the trade value? Who wants Anthony Richardson with what you've seen? You're gonna take him on potential. But the problem I still have is, Trey Lance is not the guy who drafted Trey Lance. Zach Wilson didn't draft Zach Wilson. It's the people in the front office. Zach Wilson played one really good season. Trey Lance, one really good season. It's not enough. We've talked about this. You've got to have at least 30 starts. Then you're ready, or you're more ready. But, the bottom line is they're all projects. Jackson Dart, I think, is going to be the starter this year with the Giants at some point. He's really good. And during the season, I said he had a first-round grade. And he goes late first round to the Giants. But we've seen quarterbacks taken high. We've seen them taken low. We've seen them with the last pick in the draft. You must be able to play the position and understand the position. It is not talent. There's certain sports where talent can take over. You can go out there and be a basketball player and not really know how to play basketball, but you can still play. You can be in the game. You can actually be really good because you have talent. And Anthony Richardson has talent, but that will only get you so far. I mean, if you look at the list of great quarterbacks, it's not necessarily athleticism. It is, how do I lead? How do I get out of the huddle? Change the play at the line of scrimmage? How do I process what's going on? Hey, I'm going to check down. Do I protect the football? Do I go, down for a sack instead of trying to make something? I mean, these are all the things that you just check. You got to do all these things if you have any chance of being successful. But I feel bad for Anthony Richardson because he didn't draft him, and he's a project. He's still raw. He's going to be one of those guys, and we're seeing this now more and more, and Daniel Jones is one of those guys, that you get that second chance. Geno Smith, you get that second chance. Sam Darnold, you get a second chance. That's what happens now, that all of a sudden it's 2 years and we move on. And then you'll bring in somebody else because this is what you ultimately hear. Boy, that quarterback class for next year is great. So you're already thinking, all right, what are we going to do next year? Who are we going to draft next year? I mean, the Browns are going to go through this situation. Joe Flacco's not the starter next year. Are they going to give Shedeur Sanders and Dylan Gabriel an opportunity to prove if they can be a starter? Will they get this year and then maybe next year? But the Browns have 2 first-round draft picks. The Rams will probably move on from Matthew Stafford after this year. Is Stetson Bennett going to be the heir apparent there? They have 2 first-round draft picks. It's so enticing to go, that guy. I see what we have here, but that guy, he's got potential. Man, look at him. He's carving up SEC defenses. We see this every single year. But Anthony Richardson, we can label him a bust, or at least potentially a bust, but the pick is the bust. Mitchell Trubisky, the pick is the bust. Trey Lance, maybe they weren't ready to play. And we've seen that. I keep thinking Trey Lance, maybe he can still play. But what's he on, his 3rd team now? He might not be able to be a starter in the league. But then there are other guys that you go, Jacoby Brissett knows how to play the game. He might not be high end, but why is it Jacoby Brissett or Teddy Bridgewater can play better than somebody who is as talented as Anthony Richardson? Or Joe Flacco. I can outrun him. We're about the same age. But he's just out there playing. Here's Joe talking about being a 40-year-old quarterback.
It's always one of those things that, I think as a football player, you just want to play. But I think you got to give a lot of credit to, obviously, Tom for anybody even thinking about doing it. Obviously, there was guys before. You have Warren Moon, and I talked about it a couple weeks ago, Vinny Testaverde, and other guys that have done it. But, I mean, he pushed the boundaries like he did in absolutely everything. No surprise that he did it in that way as well. But, I don't think it's necessarily something that I actively think about until people kind of remind me with texts and things like that, and you guys ask me about it. I don't think it's a huge deal right now, but I'm sure when I look back on it, it'll be pretty cool.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense, right? Because the position has evolved. Now you don't have to be 6'5" stationary with a rocket for an arm. Now it's open to interpretation. But it still comes back to, can you play the position? And I like in Anthony Richardson, too, it's a piece of property, and it overlooks the water. And, man, that looks gorgeous. I wonder what we could build on that piece of property. Meanwhile, Joe Flacco, he's just maybe a condominium and moves as fast as a condominium. 2-bedroom condo, there's our guy. I mean, you can have Brady who has a mansion or John Elway or those guys. Anthony Richardson and some of these younger quarterbacks, it's just a piece of property that has a great view or the potential for something really nice. But can you play the position? And when I talked to my source last night, he went over his notes, and I just kept going, check, check, check. And he said, sometimes we'll fall in love with one or two plays, and we go, oh, my goodness, did you see that? And there is a play that Anthony Richardson has. I think it's a 60-yard pass. It's gorgeous. It's unbelievable. It's like when Zach Wilson had his pro day, and he did the let me turn and go left and throw right and do the Mahomes thing. Oh, my God, you see that? I go, that doesn't mean anything. I mean, it's nice, but it doesn't. It's like the guy in your backyard who's just, he's unbelievable. And then he gets into a structured game and he can't play. And that's what happens. We fall in love with a highlight or two. We're so highlight driven. And it comes down to every single day, every single game, all of those moments. Yeah, Paulie.
And the Colts, going back to when Anthony Richardson was a rookie, ignored everything you would do with a rookie who's a project. They announced him as the starter for week 1 halfway through training camp on August 15th. They had Gardner Minshew. They could have let Minshew handle the first half of the season and handed it off to Richardson, literally, and they didn't. And he got hurt in games 2 and 3, and that curtailed him. And the other thing is, Patrick Mahomes sat his rookie year. Mahomes, because they thought of him as a project. And that guy had like 70 touchdowns in college passing.
Yeah, he came in as a gunslinger. They weren't quite sure. You're going to kind of have to reel him in a little bit there. He wants to be like Favre. Well, he understands how to play the game. He can throw for 50 touchdowns, or he can throw for 25. But the bottom line is he's going to win games. His stats last year weren't great. Would they lose one game? One game in the regular season? When he threw for 50 touchdowns, they lost 4 games. It's understanding how to win a game. What do I need to do today? What do I need to do this quarter? What do I need to do in the final 2 minutes? How many of those quarterbacks, how many times do we say this with Tom Brady? 3 minutes to go, 2 minutes to go, he's got the ball. Oh, boy, you're going to lose. It just happened. Why? He just knew how to win a game. John Elway, 2 minutes to go, damn, he's got the ball. We're going to lose. The question is, how are we? Hey, let's guess how we're going to lose. You can have great athleticism, great talent, but you have to have a mind for the game. But you also have to have a coaching staff that doesn't have turnover, that you have the same offensive coordinator, the same coach. That is so important and underrated. Yeah, Paulie.
I went back and looked at Anthony Richardson's draft profile by Lance Zierlein of NFL.com, and the player comp is Cam Newton. But he wraps it up by saying, imagine if Cam Newton didn't do anything in college, really. Cam Newton had all the production and won and had everything and passed and ran. Anthony Richardson got benched his last year for another player. And they said it's got tons of upside, but it's going to be one of the bigger risks if someone takes him in the first round. That was said before the draft.
Yeah, and you would watch a game. There'd be times where you couldn't take your eyes off of him. And then there'd be other times when you're watching and nothing stood out. But is he going to play this year? I think with the coaching staff probably coaching for their jobs, he's probably going to have to find a job elsewhere to play. But he's got 2 years left on his contract.